And then we turn over to John 18, 1 to 3. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the brook Cedron, where was a garden, into the which he entered, and his disciples. And Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place, for Jesus oftentimes resorted thither with his disciples. Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, cometh thither with lanterns and torches and weapons, and he betrayed him there. So he was betrayed by Judas first of all. Let's have a look what Mark says about that. Mark 14. Mark 14. Where are we? 43 to 46. And immediately while he yet spake came Judas, one of the 12, and with him a great multitude with swords and staves from the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. And he that betrayed him had given them a token, saying, Whomsoever I shall kiss, the same is he. Take him and lead him away safely. And as soon as he was come, he goeth straightway to him, and saith unto him, Master, Master, and kissed him. And they laid their hands on him and took him. Right. And so Christ was betrayed. Just like Joseph was betrayed by his brethren, Christ was betrayed by his brethren. Then it was his brethren, the Jews, that had him crucified. John 18:3. John 18:3. Right. Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, cometh thither with lanterns and torches and weapons. Right? They were his brethren, the Jews. They're the ones that had him crucified. They're the ones that arrested him. And then Joseph was sold into slavery in Egypt. Let's go back to Genesis again, 37. Verse 36. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt. Now, Joseph's brothers sold him to the Midianites, and the Midianites sold him into Egypt under Potiphar, the officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. So he was sold into slavery in Egypt. Christ also was sold for the price of a slave. Luke 22, 3 to 6. We'll have a look at that. Luke 22. (22, 3 to 6). Then entered Satan into Judas, surnamed Iscariot, being of the number of the 12. And he went his way and communed with the chief priests and captains how they might betray him unto them. And they were glad and covenanted to give him money. And he promised and sought opportunity to betray him unto them in the absence of the multitude. Right? So he was sold for the price of a slave. Matthew 26. Matthew 26, 14 to 16. Matthew 26, 14 to 16. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priests and said unto them, What will ye give me? And I will deliver him unto you. And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver. And from that time he sought opportunity to betray him. 30 pieces of silver, that's the price of a slave back in those days. And so Christ was sold for the price of a slave. We remember also that Egypt is a type of the world, and Christ left his home in heaven to come to this world in order to redeem us, just as Joseph did for his brethren. And so we see that this type is a really good type, Joseph, in the Old Testament. And then Joseph served a time in Egypt. Back to Genesis again. Genesis 39, 6. Right. It's talking about 39, 1 and 2. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master in Egypt. So he served the time in Egypt, and Christ also served the time here on earth. Luke 3:23. Luke 3:23. And Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being, as was supposed, the son of Joseph, which was the son of Heli. Right. Christ served their time here on earth. And he's 30 years old, and here he begins his redemptive ministry. And he's about 30 years of age. And Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age. Now that is a significant age. It's interesting to note that Joseph was also 30 years of age when he began his redemptive ministry back in Genesis 41:46. Genesis 41:46. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And so Christ began his priestly ministry when he was 30 years of age, and Joseph began his redemptive ministry when he was 30 years of age. It says also Joseph was a goodly person and well favoured, back in Genesis 39:6. Genesis 39:6. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hands, and he knew not aught that he had save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favoured. And it says of Christ in Luke 2:52, he increased in wisdom and stature and in favour with God and man. And then we see that Joseph was tempted but refused to sin. Genesis 39:7-12. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused, and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and hath committed all that he hath into my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass as he spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her, to lie by her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by the garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. Right. Joseph was tempted, but he refused to sin. Christ also was tempted, but refused to sin. Matthew 4:1-11. We'll just look at the Matthew 1. Matthew 4:1-11. And we'll just read that one, and then we'll go over to the Hebrew one. Matthew 4:1-11. Right. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil, and when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of God, command these stones, that these stones be made bread. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. And the devil taketh him up into the holy city, and setteth him on the pinnacle of the temple, and saith unto him, If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, He shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. And Jesus said unto him, It is written again, Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Again the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto him, All these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. And saith Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. Right. Christ was tempted, but refused to sin. Hebrews 4:15 sums it up. And we'll just read that. Hebrews 4:15. Right. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. So Joseph was tempted but refused to sin. Christ also was tempted but refused to sin. And so we see the type there once again. Then Joseph was falsely accused and punished unjustly. Genesis 39:15-20. We'll go back and have a look at that. Genesis 39:15-20. And it came to pass, right, now this is after Joseph had fled out of the house, verse 12. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in a Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou broughtest unto us came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant unto me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison. And so Joseph was falsely accused and punished unjustly. Christ also was falsely accused and punished unjustly. Matthew 26. Matthew 26. 57-63. Matthew 26, 57-63. And they that had laid hold on Jesus led him away to Caiaphas the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were assembled. But Peter followed him afar off into the high priest's palace, and went in and sat with the servants to see the end. Now the chief priests and elders and all the council sought false witness against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. Yea, but many false witnesses came, yet found they none. At last came two false witnesses and said, This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days. And the high priest arose and said unto him, Answerest thou nothing? What is it which these witness against thee? But Jesus held his peace. Right, he was falsely accused and punished unjustly, just as Joseph was. Mark, we'll have a look at Mark 14. No, we'll look at Mark 15:15. Mark 15. So Pilate, willing to content the people, released Barabbas unto them and delivered Jesus when he had scourged him to be crucified. Right, he was put to death, punished unjustly. And then Joseph was raised up out of prison to be next to the king. Back to Genesis 41. Genesis 41, 37 to 44. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Forasmuch as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Right, so we see that Joseph was raised up out of prison to be next to the king. And then we see too that Christ was raised from death to sit on the right hand of the Father. Romans 8:34. Romans 8:34. Right, verse 33. Who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? It is God that justifieth. Who is he that condemneth? It is Christ that died, yea, rather that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of God, who also maketh intercession for us. So we see that Christ was also raised up from death to sit on the right hand of the Father. Ephesians 1:20. Ephesians 1:20. Which he wrought in Christ when he raised him from the dead and set him at his own right hand in the heavenly places. Christ was raised from death to sit on the right hand of the Father. Verse 21, far above all principality and power and might and dominion and every name that is named, not only in this world but also in that which is to come. Revelation 19:16. Revelation 19:16. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's speaking about Christ. He's been raised up from death to sit on the right hand of the Father. And then we see that Joseph provided salvation for his brethren through his grace and mercy, redeemed them from the death through the famine. And Christ also has provided salvation for us and redeemed us. Ephesians 1:7.